For the past 9 years, I have been tracking population data in small Ozark towns and comparing it to what you see when you actually drive through, and I am telling you right now the official numbers do not match reality until you understand what honest reporting actually looks like in rural America. While everyone is chasing retirement destinations with inflated population counts and doctored growth charts, I have been quietly visiting these 14 towns where the census data looks brutal on paper, but walk Main Street on a Wednesday morning and you will see something the spreadsheets cannot capture. Number 6 is a town with a reported population of 287 that somehow supports 3 full-service restaurants and a hardware store that has been family-owned since 1968. And when you realize what is not being counted in those official numbers, the whole picture changes. Back in 2021, when the latest census data dropped, I watched real estate investors skip right over these towns because the population decline looked catastrophic on paper, and meanwhile locals were buying up property for prices that made 0 cents until you spent actual time there and realized the seasonal population, the second home owners, the retirees who split time between 2 states, none of that shows up in the data, but all of it shows up in the local economy. Number 14 is Pontiac, Missouri. The census says 561 people live there. That number has been dropping since 1980. Every decade, another 50 or 60 names disappear from the official count. You look at that trend line and you think this town is dying. Then you drive in on a Friday afternoon and the parking lot at the community center is full. The post office has a line. The Dollar General just got remodeled. There are new streetlights on the main drag. None of that makes sense if you trust the numbers. Here is what the numbers do not tell you. Pontiac sits on the edge of Mark Twain National Forest. Every fall during hunting season, the population triples for 6 weeks straight. Every spring during turkey season, it happens again. The cabins outside town are not counted as primary residences, so the people staying in them are not counted as residents. But those people are spending money at the gas station, buying groceries at the local market, eating breakfast at the cafe that opens at 5 in the morning for the hunters heading out before dawn. The economy is not based on 561 people. It is based on 561 people plus a rotating population of outsiders who spend like they are on vacation because they are. I talked to the woman who runs the only sit-down restaurant in town. She told me her busiest month is November, not Christmas, not summer, November, because every table is full of guys in camo who just came off the ridge and want a hot meal before they head back to whatever city they came from. The census does not count them. But her cash register does. The property tax revenue in Pontiac has been stable for over a decade, even as the population number keeps falling. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when the people who matter to the local economy are not the people being counted in the official population data. If you are looking at Ozark towns for retirement and you are filtering by population growth, you are using the wrong filter. Look at tax revenue stability. Look at how many businesses survive past 5 years. Look at whether the school is still open. Those numbers tell you more than the census ever will. Number 13 is Hardinville, Missouri. Population 159 according to the last count. That is down from 198 in 2000. The trend is ugly. The town looks doomed on paper. Then you notice the fire department has 3 trucks and a new station built in 2019. You notice the volunteer firefighter roster has 22 names on it. You do not build a new fire station in a dying town, and you do not maintain a volunteer force of 22 people in a town of 159 unless something else is happening. What is happening is rural property owners. Hardinville is surrounded by large acreage properties, 5 acres, 10 acres, 40 acres, owned by people who live in Springfield or Branson or Kansas City during the week and spend weekends and summers out here. They are not Hardinville residents by census definition. Their mailing address might be Hardinville, but their primary residence is somewhere else. They do not get counted. But when the fire department needs funding, they vote yes on the levy because their property is in the district. When the rural water system needs an upgrade, they pay the assessment. When the community has a fundraiser, they show up. The tax base in Hardinville is not supported by 159 people. It is supported by 159 full-timers plus maybe another 100 part-timers who have enough skin in the game to keep the infrastructure running. I spent a weekend there last spring. I counted 14 properties with cleared driveways, porch lights on, and vehicles parked outside. None of those properties had anyone home. They were second homes, weekend homes, future retirement homes. The people who own them are already invested in the town even if they do not live there full-time yet. When they do retire and make the move permanent, the population number will bump up by 1 or 2, but the actual impact on the town will be minimal because they have already been part of the community for years. The census counts the move. It does not count the 10 years of property taxes and volunteer hours that came before it. That is why the numbers look wrong. They are measuring the wrong thing. Number 12 is Brixie, Missouri. Census says 243 people. The number has been flat for 20 years. No growth, no decline, just flat. You look at that and you think stagnant. You think nothing is happening here. Then you drive through and you see a new post office built in 2017. You see a fire station that looks like it was built in the last decade. You see a community center with fresh paint and a sign out front advertising a pancake breakfast next Saturday. None of that happens in a stagnant town. Here is what is actually happening. The 243 number is accurate for the people who live within the Brixie city limits, but the Brixie School District covers about 60 square miles. The zip code covers even more. When people say they are from Brixie, they mean the area, not the incorporated town. The actual economic community is probably closer to 800 or 1,000 people spread across farms and rural properties that feed into Brixie for school, for church, for the post office, for the volunteer fire department. The census counts the 243 people inside the town boundary. It does not count the 600 people who live 5 miles out and consider Brixie their town. I talked to a guy at the gas station who told me he lives 12 miles outside Brixie, but his kids went to school there, his mail comes there, and when someone asks where he is from, he says Brixie because no one has ever heard of the actual road he lives on. He is not counted in the 243, but he shops there, he votes there, he donates to the fire department, his property taxes fund the school. The economy of Brixie is not a 243-person economy. It is a regional rural economy that happens to have a 243-person town at the center of it. The numbers are not wrong, they are just incomplete. If you are looking for a retirement town in the Ozarks and you are eliminating places with populations under 500, you are eliminating towns that function like they have 3 times that many people because the census draws the boundary too tight. Number 11 is Notting Hill, Missouri. Population 137, down from 162 in 2010. The decline is real. People are leaving, kids grow up and move to bigger towns, older folks pass away and their houses stay empty. That part is true, but the town is not dying. I was there on a Tuesday afternoon in October and there were 6 people in the library. The library is open 4 days a week. It has Wi-Fi. It has a genealogy section that people drive 2 hours to use. It has a community room that gets rented out for family reunions and baby showers. You do not keep a library open 4 days a week in a town of 137 unless the real user base is much larger. Notting Hill is in the middle of a stretch of county road that connects 3 or 4 other small communities. People drive through it every day on their way to work in West Plains or Willow Springs. They stop for gas. They stop at the convenience store. They use the library. They are not residents, but they are users. The tax base is partly funded by sales tax from people passing through. The infrastructure is used by a much larger population than the census number suggests. I talked to the librarian. She told me about half the people who come in regularly live outside the town limits. They live in the county. They live in unincorporated areas. They live on rural routes that do not have a town name attached. But they consider Notting Hill their library. They vote in the library district. They donate to the book sale. They bring their kids to Story Hour. The census does not count them as Notting Hill residents because they are not, but the town functions as if they are. That is the disconnect. The number is honest. The number is just not the whole story. Number 10 is Dora, Missouri. Population 178. The number has been dropping slowly for 30 years. There is no sugar coating it. Fewer people live in Dora now than lived there in 1990. But Dora has a bank, a full-service bank with a lobby and tellers and a drive-through. You do not keep a bank open in a town of 178 unless the deposit base is much larger than that. The bank serves the surrounding area, farmers, retirees on rural properties. People who live 15 miles out but do their banking in Dora because it is the closest branch. I went inside and asked the teller how long the bank had been there. She said since 1934. I asked if there was ever talk of closing it. She looked at me like I had asked if the sun was going to stop coming up. She said the deposit base is stable. The loan portfolio is healthy. The bank is not going anywhere. That tells you more about the economic reality of Dora than the population number does. Banks do not stay open for 90 years in towns that are actually dying. They stay open in towns that have a stable economic base, even if that base is not reflected in the residential population count. The people who bank in Dora do not all live in Dora, but their money is in Dora. Their mortgages are in Dora. Their car loans and business loans and savings accounts are in Dora. The town functions as a financial hub for a rural area that covers maybe 100 square miles. The 178 people who live inside the town limits are not the whole story. They are just the only people the census bothered to count. Number 9 is Myrtle, Missouri. Census says 332 people. That number dropped from 354 in 2010. Not a big drop, but still a drop. You look at the data and you think this town is barely holding on. Then you find out Myrtle has a K-12 school with an enrollment of about 240 students. Think about that. The school serves 240 kids. The town has 332 residents. That means almost every single person in town would have to be a school-age child for that to make sense. Obviously, that is not the case. What is actually happening is the school district pulls from a huge geographic area. Kids are bussed in from farms and rural properties that are 20 miles away. Those families are not Myrtle residents, but their kids go to Myrtle school. They attend Myrtle football games. They shop in Myrtle before and after school events. They donate to Myrtle fundraisers. The school is the economic engine of the town, and the school serves a population 5 or 6 times larger than the official town population. I went to a basketball game there on a Friday night last winter. The gym was packed. There were maybe 300 people in the stands. That is almost the entire official population of the town, except most of the people in that gym do not live in Myrtle. They live in the county. They live on rural routes. Their kids go to Myrtle school, so they are part of the Myrtle community, but the census does not count them as Myrtle residents. The economic impact of those families is enormous. They are the reason the Dollar General is still there. They are the reason the gas station stays busy. They are the reason the school can afford to keep teachers and buy new equipment. The 332 number is technically accurate, but it is functionally useless if you are trying to understand what kind of community Myrtle actually is. Number 8 is Prodom, Missouri. Population 142. The name literally means temporary. The town was supposed to be temporary. It was never supposed to last. That was over 100 years ago, and it is still here. The population has been under 200 for as long as anyone can remember. The census data makes it look like nothing is happening. Then you find out Prodom sits right on the edge of Bull Shoals Lake. The lake brings in tourists from May through September. The marina just outside town has slips for 200 boats. The campground has spots for 50 RVs. There are vacation rentals and fishing cabins scattered all around the area. During the summer, the effective population of Prodom is probably 5 or 6 times the official count. Those people are not residents, they are visitors. The census does not count them, but the local businesses absolutely do. I talked to a guy who owns a bait shop in Prodom. He told me he makes 70% of his annual revenue between Memorial Day and Labor Day. The other 8 months he is basically breaking even. But that summer surge is enough to keep him open year-round. He is not serving 142 people. He is serving thousands of people who pass through for a weekend or a week and need bait and ice and sunscreen and snacks. The infrastructure in Prodom is not built for 142 people. It is built for a summer population that is 10 times that size. The water system, the roads, the public boat ramp, all of it is scaled to handle the seasonal load. The census number is honest. It just does not capture the economic reality of a town that lives off tourism 4 months a year. Number 7 is Udall, Missouri. Population 206. The number has been dropping since 1970. Every decade another 20 or 30 people disappear from the count. You look at that trend and you think this place is finished. Then you notice Udall has a post office, a fire station, a community center, and a cemetery that is meticulously maintained. You notice the roads are in decent shape. You notice there is no trash piled up in yards. You notice the few businesses that are there look functional. None of that happens in a town that is actually collapsing. What is happening in Udall is the same thing happening in a dozen other towns on this list. The official population is dropping because younger people are moving to bigger towns for work. Older people are passing away. Families are getting smaller. That is all real. But the people who are staying on purpose. They are not staying because they are stuck. They are staying because they want to be there. They own their homes outright. They have low cost of living. They have community ties that go back generations. They are not going anywhere, and they are being joined by a smaller but significant number of people who are moving in from cities, retirees, remote workers, people who want land and quiet and a low cost of living. Those people are not moving to Udall because of the population number. They are moving there despite it. The population count is lagging the actual economic and social stability of the town by about 10 years. The town bottomed out around 2015 and has been quietly stabilizing since then, but the census data has not caught up yet. If you're looking at Udall today based on 2020 census data, you are looking at old information. Drive through in 2025 and you will see a town that feels more stable than the numbers suggest. Number 6 is Zanoni, Missouri. Population 287. This is the one I mentioned at the start. 3 full-service restaurants, a hardware store that has been in the same family since 1968, a post office, a fire station, a community building, a school that closed in 2015 but the building is still being used for community events. You do not sustain 3 restaurants in a town of 287 unless the real customer base is much larger. I ate at one of those restaurants on a Saturday morning. The place was full. I counted about 40 people. That is 14% of the entire town population sitting in one restaurant at one time. That does not happen unless people are driving in from outside. I asked the waitress where most of the customers come from. She said about half are locals and half are people passing through or coming in from the county. Zanoni sits on Highway 181, which is a main route between West Plains and Gainesville. People stop there for breakfast or lunch because it is halfway. The restaurants are not serving the town. They are serving the highway. The hardware store is the same. Farmers and ranchers from 20 miles out come to Zanoni for supplies because it is closer than driving all the way to West Plains. The customer base for that hardware store is probably 2,000 or 3,000 people spread across a huge area. The store does not need 287 people. It needs 2,000 people who make one trip a month. That is what it has. The population number is honest. It is just not relevant to understanding whether the businesses can survive. The businesses are not dependent on the population inside the town limits. They are dependent on the economic region the town serves. Number 5 is Bakersfield, Missouri. Population 267. The census data shows a decline from 303 in 2010. That is a 12% drop in 10 years. That looks bad. Then you find out the Bakersfield School District just passed a bond issue to build a new gym. You do not pass a bond issue in a dying town. Bond issues require voter approval. Voters do not approve debt for capital projects unless they believe the town has a future. I looked up the vote totals. The bond passed with 68% approval. That means 2/3 of the voters in the district believe the town is stable enough to take on debt and pay it back over 20 years. Those voters are not stupid. They live there. They know what is happening better than any census data can tell you. What is happening is the school district covers a much larger area than the town itself. The district includes parts of Ozark County and Howell County. The total district population is probably around 800 people. Those 800 people voted to fund a new gym because their kids use that gym. They are invested in the school even if they do not live in the town. The 267 number is the town population. It is not the district population. It is not the economic community population. It is just the number of people who live inside the incorporated boundary. That number is accurate and also irrelevant if you are trying to figure out whether Bakersfield is a stable place to retire. Look at the bond issue. Look at the fact that voters just committed to 20 years of debt repayment. That tells you they believe the town will be here in 20 years. That is a better signal than any population trend line. Number 4 is Thornfield, Missouri. Population 185. The number has been flat for 15 years, no growth, no decline, just flat. You look at that and you think nothing is changing. Then you drive through and you see new construction, not a lot but some. A new house going up on the edge of town, a garage being built behind an older home, a shed, a fence, small signs of investment. People do not build if they think the town is dying. They build if they think they are staying. I talked to a guy who was putting up a pole barn on his property just outside Thornfield. He told me he bought the place in 2019. He is retired. He moved from Springfield. He wanted land and quiet and low property taxes. He found all three in Thornfield. He is not counted in the 185 because he lives just outside the town limits, but he uses the post office. He uses the fire department. He shops at the convenience store. He votes in local elections. He is part of the community in every way that matters except the census does not count him as part of the town. That is the story of Thornfield. The town population is flat, but the surrounding area is slowly attracting retirees and remote workers who want rural property. They are not moving into the town. They are moving near the town. The economic impact is the same. The census just does not capture it. If you are looking at Thornfield as a retirement option, do not focus on the 185 number. Focus on the fact that people are building. Focus on the fact that property is selling. Focus on the fact that the infrastructure is stable. Those are better indicators than population count. Number 3 is Isabella, Missouri. Population 136. That number has been dropping for 40 years. The peak was in 1980 when the population hit 223. Since then it has been a slow, steady decline. You look at that and you think this town is on life support. Then you find out Isabella has a community water system that was upgraded in 2018. You do not spend money upgrading water infrastructure in a town that is dying. Water system upgrades are expensive. They require grants or bonds or rate increases. None of that happens unless there is confidence the system will be used for decades. I looked into it. The upgrade was funded by a USDA Rural Development grant. The grant required a local match. The community raised the match. That means the people in and around Isabella believed the investment was worth it. They were right. The water system serves not just the town but also rural customers in the area. The total customer base is probably around 300 or 350 people. Those customers are spread across a large area. Most of them do not live in Isabella, but they are connected to Isabella through the water system. They pay water bills to Isabella. They vote in water district elections. They are part of the infrastructure even if they are not part of the population count. The 136 number is honest. It is just not the full picture. The economic and infrastructure footprint of Isabella extends far beyond the town boundary. If you are evaluating Isabella as a retirement destination, do not stop at the population number. Look at the infrastructure. Look at the water system. Look at the roads. Look at whether the fire department is staffed. Those things tell you whether the town is functional. The population number just tells you how many people live inside an arbitrary boundary line. Number 2 is Caulfield, Missouri. Population 134. The trend line is down. The peak was 189 in 1990. Since then it has dropped every single census. That is 30 years of continuous decline. You look at that and you think there is no way this town survives another decade. Then you spend a day there and you realize the town is not dying. It is transforming. Caulfield used to be a farming and logging town. The economy was based on extraction and agriculture. That economy is mostly gone. The timber industry consolidated. Farms got bigger and needed fewer people. The jobs left, the people left, the population dropped. That part is true, but what is replacing it is a quiet influx of people who do not need local jobs, retirees with pensions, remote workers, people who bought cheap land and are building small homesteads. They are not moving to Caulfield for work. They are moving there for cost of living and quality of life. I talked to a woman who moved to Caulfield in 2020. She works remotely for a company in Kansas City. She bought 5 acres and a small house for under $60,000. Her property tax is less than $500 a year. She has high-speed internet through a local wireless provider. She drives to West Plains once a week for groceries. Everything else she needs is online or in Caulfield. She is not counted in the 134 because she just moved there and the census was taken before she arrived. But she is part of the future of Caulfield. She's part of a small but growing group of people who are moving to rural Ozark towns because the cost of living is low and remote work makes it possible. The population number is still dropping because the old economy is gone, but the new economy is quietly taking root. The census data is lagging reality by 5 or 10 years. By the time the 2030 census is done, Caulfield will probably show stabilization or even slight growth. But you do not have to wait for the census to see it. You can see it now if you look at who is buying property and why. Number 1 is Sycamore, Missouri. Population 94, that is not a typo, 94 people. The number has been under 100 since 2000. This is one of the smallest incorporated towns in the state. You look at that number and you think this is not a town. This is a crossroads with a post office. You would be wrong. Sycamore has a community center that was completely renovated in 2020. It has a volunteer fire department with a fleet of trucks and a roster of active volunteers. It has a post office that is open 6 days a week. It has a monthly community breakfast that draws over 100 people. How does a town of 94 people draw over 100 people to a community breakfast? Because the community is not 94 people. The community is everyone who lives within 10 or 15 miles and considers Sycamore their town. The 94 people who live inside the town limits are the core, but the community includes everyone who uses the post office, everyone who volunteers for the fire department, everyone who donates to the community center, everyone who shows up to the pancake breakfast. That is probably 400 or 500 people. They do not live in Sycamore, but they are part of Sycamore. I went to the pancake breakfast in April. The parking lot was full. There were trucks with license plates from 3 different counties. There were families with kids, there were older couples, there were groups of friends. The room was loud and full and it smelled like coffee and bacon and maple syrup. No one there cared that the official population was 94. They cared that the community was alive. The census counts addresses, it does not count connections, it does not count relationships. It does not count the fact that a town can function as a community hub for a much larger population than the number on the welcome sign suggests. Sycamore is the most extreme example on this list, but it is not an outlier. It is the rule. Almost every small town in the Ozarks functions this way. The official population is a fraction of the real community. The infrastructure serves a much larger group. The economy depends on people who live outside the boundary. The census is honest. It is just answering the wrong question. The right question is not how many people live in the town. The right question is how many people depend on the town. And in Sycamore the answer is not 94. The answer is somewhere between 400 and 500. That is the number that matters. That is the number that keeps the community center open and the fire trucks running and the pancake breakfast packed. The 94 number is real. It is just not the whole truth. So here is what you know now that most people looking at Ozark retirement towns do not know. The census counts people who live inside town limits. It does not count the seasonal residents. It does not count the part-timers. It does not count the people who live just outside the boundary. It does not count the people who use the town as a hub even though they live 20 miles away. It does not count the economic region. It does not count the school district population. It does not count the fire district. It does not count the water district. It counts one thing: residential population inside the incorporated boundary. That number is accurate. It is also incomplete. If you're filtering Ozark towns by population growth, you are eliminating towns that are economically stable and functionally much larger than the census suggests. Look at infrastructure investment instead. Look at whether the water system has been upgraded recently. Look at whether the fire department has new equipment. Look at whether the school district passed a bond issue. Look at whether there is new construction. Look at whether local businesses are surviving. Those are better signals than population trend lines. The numbers are not wrong, they are just honest in a way that does not tell the full story. These 14 towns have populations that look too small to be sustainable, and if the census number was the whole truth, they would not be sustainable. Drop a comment and tell me which of these towns you are going to visit. I want to know which one surprised you the most. Next week, I am covering the 10 things every real estate agent in the Ozarks will tell you that are completely backwards if you are actually planning to live there full time. Some of this advice costs people tens of thousands of dollars. You do not want to miss it.